Hello everyone, my name is Munyora. We have had a lot of conversation around BBI over the past few months. The report is finally out. Kenyans are reading the report, and for those Kenyans who have not had a chance to read through the report, I want to highlight and paraphrase what the BBI report has proposed to do so that Kenyans may understand and continue to read it from an informed angle. So first, some of the changes that has been made to the IBC is that political parties will now nominate members or commissioners of the IBC, and they have said 4 members out of the 7 will be nominated by the political parties. Any person who has been the president, deputy president, governor, deputy governor, MP or MCA is not qualified to contest is not qualified for appointment as a commissioner of the IBC. Another proposal is that the party lists will now include the party nomination to members to the county assembly will now include the youth, women, persons with disability, marginalized minorities, and apart from what we had earlier, the constitution was stating regional representation. And then the nomination will be based on the number of votes and not the number of seats a party gets, which has been the current situation. The National Assembly will have 360 members, and the leader of official opposition, the Attorney General, and the cabinet ministers will be ex-official members of the National Assembly. Another proposal is that the Senate will have 94 members elected, 1 male and 1 female, each elected across the 47 counties. We also have a new clause allowing members of the county assembly, MCS, to contest for a position of the MP whenever it arises. They had previously been barred from contesting the sitting MCS, but now they have been allowed by the Bbi Proposals. The leader of official opposition, who shall be in the National Assembly, shall have a shadow cabinet and shall come from a party which has the majority. He shall be the person who has got the second largest number of votes and should have at least 25% of the MPs in the National Assembly. If this person is not does not take up the position, then the coalition is allowed, or the party, the majority party, is allowed to propose another person to be the leader of official opposition. The National Assembly, during the mediation of bills, the National Assembly has been the one with the authority to forward the final recommendation or the final bill which consensus has been built to the president. But now that authority has been transferred to the House which has originated the bill. So if the Senate originates a bill and it's a bill of contention between the Senate and the National Assembly, then after resolution it is the Senate that will forward the bill to the president. Another thing that has been done, as a section, they have repeated the section on voting by delegation in the Senate. So voting in the Senate will no longer be by delegation. all the senators will be allowed to vote. If we have a senator, two senators, if one of them is not available, then the other one is allowed to vote. And if both of them are available, they are allowed to vote. This arose when Malala was arrested, and the nominated senator was given the right to vote, but Malala withdrew that right because under the current constitution, it is only the elected senator who is the head of delegation who is allowed to vote. Now that has been done away with. Another one, the executive has been expanded to include the prime minister, and the two deputy prime ministers will now be members of the executive. They have replaced the word cabinet secretary with cabinet minister, so they will be no longer be called cabinet secretaries. Previously, if an election was if the deputy president, a candidate for deputy president, died before the election, then a new election was planned. Currently in the BBI, if a candidate for the deputy president dies before the election, then the election will proceed. Presidential election petitions will be heard by the Supreme Court in 30 days and not as previously had been done within 14 days. The Prime Minister will be the majority leader, person who comes from the majority party. The President will appoint him, and if the National Assembly rejects the President appointments, then the party with the highest number of MPs, the majority party, will nominate another person to be the majority party leader, who will in turn be nominated by the President to be the Prime Minister. If the National Assembly rejects that person for the second time, then the President is given a leeway to appoint another Prime Minister who can command majority support from the county, from the National Assembly. The ministers will now be appointed from among the members of Parliament, and some will be appointed from outside the Parliament. This has not been the case as before. The President no longer requires approval of the National Assembly when appointing ministers and principal secretaries, which has been the case before. The principal secretaries will be interviewed by the Public Service Commission and a list forwarded to the President for nomination. Another thing is that the DPP, the person who is appointed to be the DPP, must have the qualification of that equal to the judge of the Court of Appeal. Previously, it was the qualification equal to that of the High Court judge. So the bar has been raised by the BBI. The process of removing the DPP has been repealed because the DPP is now under independent commissions. He will be removed in office under the normal procedure of removing commissioners from office. All election petitions, except presidential petitions, will now end in the Court of Appeal. Only presidential election petitions will be tabled in the Supreme Court. So we've been having election petitions running all a long way to the Supreme Court. But now the decision of the Court of Appeal will be final. And the President of the Court of Appeal will serve a single term of 5 years, unlike before. The Chief Justice, the experience for a person to be the Chief Justice has been 15 years, but has now been raised to 20 years. And that of the Court of Appeal judge has been raised from 10 years to 15 years. The CJ and the Deputy Chief Justice will serve the same term, will have the same tenure of office. Then the BBI has introduced another office of a judicial ombudsman to be part of the Judicial Service Commission, and it has also given the JSC powers to discipline the judges who are not acting in accordance with the law. He talked about the nomination. The nomination will be based on the number of votes and not the number of seats. And the term of the MCA will expire on the date of the next general election. So it will not expire after the general election. The Constitution had no section of recalling MCAs, but now that has been introduced. A party is now allowed to recall a nominated MCA on the grounds of violating the party rules or Constitution of Kenya. And the citizens are also allowed to recall their MCAs, which is part of the BBI. The governors have been having a tough problem to relieve the CCM their duties. And whenever such happens, the CCMs went to court. But now, the governor has expressed authority to reassign and dismiss a cabinet executive committee member without giving any reason. The governor and the deputy governor must be of opposite gender, a case which has not been there before. Some functions of Nairobi County will now be officially transferred to the national government, and those functions have been stated there. Where the National Assembly has not passed the latest audited accounts. You know, audited accounts are used to share the revenue. It is a baseline for sharing of revenue. So when the latest audited accounts have not been used, then the immediate former audited accounts are used to share the revenue to the counties. This is just a clause to reduce the stalemate where we do not have the latest audited accounts. The revenues to counties has been increased from 15% to 35%. And the Award Development Fund, which is somehow similar to that Constituency Development Fund, has been introduced, of which 5% of the county revenue will be allocated to that Award Development Fund. The Commission of Revenue Allocation will have a representative of the Council of Governors in the Senate. And then we have 2 persons who will be nominated by political parties. And previously we had 5 of them. So they have been reduced to 2 for the political parties. Matters to do with the division of revenue. The BBI has placed some timelines, unlike before. 4 months to the end of the financial year, the bill on division of revenue is supposed to be introduced in the National Assembly. And the National Assembly will have 21 days to sit and consider the bill. After it has considered the bill, within 7 days, the National Assembly will forward it to the Speaker. and the Senate, the Speaker of the Senate, and the Senate is given 21 days to pass the bill and refer it back to the National Assembly. So the National Assembly will have another 14 days to pass the Division of Revenue Bill. If it is passed within that period, then within 7 days, the Speaker of the National Assembly is supposed to forward it to the President for approval. If it is not passed by the National Assembly, then there is the National Assembly and the Senate is given 14 days to mediate and agree on the bill. If there is a stalemate, then the Constitution has also provided for the control of budget to disperse 50% of revenue to counties. Remember, we had a stalemate and there was no law to allow the control of budget to disburse this money. But now BBI has given the control of budget that express authority. Another thing which has not been there is the cabinet minister is a right to stop transfer of funds to counties and state organs. And whenever he does so to counties, he is supposed to write a memorandum to the Senate explaining why. If he does so to state organs, he is supposed to write a memorandum to the National Assembly explaining why. The CRC has now been given the mandate under BBI to determine the rates for procuring professional services, such as lawyers, engineers, and architects. This has been determined by the entities such as county governments and the departments, but the mandate has now been transferred to the SRC. The SRC will also determine the salaries and remuneration of state officers. Previously, they were only determining those of public officers. And then there is a formation of the Youth Commission, which is a youth advocacy body, commission which will oversee and advocate for the youth agenda in the country. The Prime Minister is going to be a member of the National Security Council, and the Kenya Police and Kenya Administrative Police have been collapsed into one police service. The National Police Service is being replaced by the Kenya Police Council, which is having somehow the similar mandate and will be chaired by the Cabinet Secretary for Interior. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority has been replaced by the Independent Policing Oversight Commission. So the word authority has been replaced by commission, which is somehow going to deal with the same issues. And then the Attorney General will now be a member of the National Assembly, but an ex-official member, so he or she will be allowed to attend the sittings. So that is briefly what is inside BBI, and there are finer details. We'll starting from next week, we'll try to see a chapter by chapter the issues that has been raised, and if they make sense or not, if they are valid or not, and if there are any changes that people will propose, so that citizens are able to understand the in-depth of this BBI, so that when it comes to the referendum, you are able to vote knowing what you are voting, not because you have been told. Thank you so much.